Hello, everybody. Welcome to this installation or to this segment on our online learning for ComSoc 1, Week 1, Day 2, where we are going to look also at study unit number 3, covering the duties of a safety officer in the mining industry as prescribed in the Mine Health and Safety Act. Um, in your books, as usual, you will find the objectives in front of the study unit. And in this instance, we have also included the duties of a chief safety officer and those of a safety or health and safety representative. But our focus should be on the safety officer's duties. So let's quickly highlight the most important objectives that you need to grasp and master in preparation for your first assessment. So the following shall apply in this topic. We are looking at objective number 1, where we talk about you must at least know when a safety officer is appointed according to the Mine Health and Safety Act 29 of 1996 of South Africa, which gives you 3 marks. And we're going to be going through the slides and explaining how you answer those questions. And you'll find your answers on page 6. The next objective is objective number 3, where you are supposed to list at least 6 duties of a safety officer in the mining industry. For 6 marks, the answers you'll find on page 7. And again, this will be explained as we go through the slides. The next objective will be objective number 6, where you need to establish or to list at what intervals must working places be inspected by a safety officer and who establishes those intervals. That is an 8-mark point question. You need to give us 4 things for 2 marks each to make up 8 marks. Because we need to establish who is the guy who then says to a safety officer, go and inspect working places. Okay, so that's the objective number 6, and I'm going to show you in the slides as well how we go about that. Next is your objective number 13, 1-3, the last objective, where it says list your casualty and non-casualty accidents that must be reported to the Principal Inspector of Mines, or as we know it, to the DMR, or DMRE, Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. Remember, they keep what is known as a SAMRAS system. It's a South African Mines Reportable Accident Statistical System. All the statistics that we get when we hear there's a fatality there, there's an accident there, a dangerous occurrence there, where do the department get that information? It is because according to law, they are reportable to the department that they then keep trends in the industry of what is actually transpiring. And that objective number 13, ladies and gentlemen, requires us to list at least 10 of those accidents that must be reported to the DMR. 10 of them. And let me highlight this as well. This objective is going to come in your first test and in your final test. So keep note of that. Do not forget. Okay, so in laying out the scene of this topic, I always want to start with, before I go into the role of the safety officer, I want to talk about the role of the safety department itself. Then we can go and focus on the safety officer as an appointment in that department. But in general, the safety department in an organization, what is it there for? What is it? What is the use of the safety department in the organization? Because if you look at your orientation video clip, where I mentioned the different systems, like from your risk management program, where does safety management fit in, and where does risk assessment fit in, and all that, you will see that safety department is just but part of the risk management program of the whole organization. But safety department is focused on some very specialized roles that we need to highlight before we can go and describe the duties of a safety officer. And here are the roles. They ensure, let me use my lighter again, they ensure compliance in the organization. Also, what compliance? We are talking about compliance in terms of the Mine Health and Safety Act, industry guidelines, COPs, international guidelines, compliance in terms of your organization's policies and procedures. That's a must. So we ensure, as the safety department, we go out there, we do our work in terms of PTOs and checking for compliance. Inspections is about checking for compliance, that this, if it is inspection, this working place is compliant to the required standards. It's prescribed either in the Mine Health and Safety Act or the advice we get from, or directives we get from the department or from the mine itself, in terms of what are their standards in those working places. So compliance issues, that's what we do. We do not, as the safety department per se, enforce compliance. Enforcement of compliance is highlighted in the Mine Health and Safety Act in your chapter 50s for the powers, the role and powers of the inspectorate. Those are the guys who do enforcement, because they punish you. They give you a section 54, which I'm sure in one of the documents I've given you, you can read what that means. It means it's an instruction to sort out whatever dangerous occurrences or whatever non-compliance issues that might have been picked up by the inspector. And at the same time, there is an option for the inspector to give a fine to the mine. But the question is, can your safety department actually give a section 54 according to the Mine Health and Safety Act and a penalty? That's where the catch is. So we ensure compliance. We are also advisors in the organization. People come to us and ask us, looking for advice. I need this, I need that, and so on and so forth. So we advise management, we advise all employees at all levels on what are the best practices in terms of making sure we still comply. We are also internal consultants in terms of health and safety. People come to consult. Okay. They come to consult about, from procedures to standards to COPs to anything in terms of updated information from the department, trends in the industry. They come to consult. Engineers come to consult. How do we go about doing a risk assessment on A, B, C, D? It's a consultation, so we are also an internal consultation department. But also, if you look at this one I have here, common sense tells us that we are also, as a safety department, the link between us as the organization and the government department, which is the DMRE. In the olden days, the DMRA would give notification to the safety department and notify us, or the manager, that, listen, I'll be visiting your mine at this particular date, and we get ready. You see us running around preparing for that day to come. But nowadays, things have changed. Even today, you'll find in the notice board of your organization, the number of the inspector is even put in there. Sometimes they just rock up unannounced. And I know a lot of people don't like it. I would love to rock up at a working place unannounced, because that's how we keep the standards going. Because it's pointless, from my experience, where you find people know somebody is coming to visit or to inspect. We are busy cleaning up and putting everything. I'm telling you, I used to scrape even haulages of any oil deposits, make it clean, sweep it clean, wipe it clean. And the inspector just comes in 2 minutes, not even noticing my cleanliness, and they go to the back. But check it out the following shift when you come back to that working place, how dirty it is. So yes, we have issues, but I don't mind at all if somebody to come and inspect my working place, because it must be the same all the time. The standards should be kept all the time. Last but not least, I'm very passionate about this. This is very important to grasp. That's why you see in the learner share package that I gave you, the documentation, video clips, everything that I gave you, I always give it to people in COMSOC 1, you will realize I gave you a book on research. Because this is the research department. What do I mean? What is research? When you look at research, research is what we use as professionals to solve society's problems. So there is a societal problem. We go and identify where is the problem, what is the problem, and we gather evidence about that problem. We look in gathering evidence, we identify who is involved, who is affected by that problem, and we get the information from there. That's gathering evidence. We take that evidence, we analyze that evidence, and we submit our findings and recommendations. That's what the research is all about. If you look at what we do in the safety department, because I always tell people, safety management, it's a science. It's not just thumb sucking and walking the park. It is a science. So when we say you are a researcher in the safety department as a safety practitioner, you must listen very carefully. Get yourself any books, anything to do with research. Familiarize yourself with what is research, what happens in research. Because if you look at what we do when we go and do inspections, isn't that going to do data gathering? Are you not gathering information? Is that information not going to be analyzed so that we can put remedial actions? If you do PTOs, is that not data gathering? If we do accident incident investigations, if you look at accident investigations, they are perfectly, the steps in an accident investigation, you see the following installment here on the online platform is going to be accident incident investigation. You will realize the steps they follow in accident investigation are exactly the steps we follow in research. In actual fact, academically, in some circles, we don't say research, we say investigation. It is an investigation. But in this case, for accidents and incidents, we are looking at the causal effects of that accident. We do a causal analysis. What caused it? What were the root causes, the main causes, the direct causes and the indirect causes of an accident? And if you, those steps, if you put them side by side, you will realize that is research. Therefore, I would advise you, do something about your research skills, read anything on research, gather any information about the research, look at the skills that a researcher must have. Must have an analytical and probing mind. A person who must be able to handle information so that you can analyze the information by identifying the patterns in the information, the themes in the information, as well as the trends in the information. So that's what we expect safety practitioners to be in the department. Hence, you will find for every tertiary institution offering from an undergraduate qualification, research methodology is a must. Actually, in the first world, out there, in the first world, you don't get appointed as a safety practitioner if you don't have a minimum of a degree. But in our mining industry, we've got a different set, a different history. So we are saying, do yourself a favor, understand what is research, be a step ahead, understand research methodology, because what is mentioned in there are the skills that we want a safety practitioner to actually possess. How to gather evidence, how to analyze that evidence, how to write reports. That's what we require. So, having said that, we can then go on and say, as safety practitioners, before I go into the role, as a safety practitioner, you must also understand and realize what is a safety culture in your organization. What safety culture do you practice in your organization? I'm sure everybody understands what is culture. We can start by not even talking about safety culture, but culture in general. Okay, the way we do things here, in terms of looking at moral values, ethics, the practices, standard practices that we do, systems that we use that are specific for anything in terms of management systems. Then we say we have got a culture of doing things this way. Okay. So safety in its own right, we have what we call a safety culture. Please take the opportunity to watch the safety culture video clips that I have also attached in this day for day 2 in ComSoc 1 book 1 for day 2. Look in the channel, appropriate channel for our team, and you will find, yes, I've put two video clips, one explaining the different levels of safety cultures and the other one explaining at the highest level of safety culture what is expected of an organization. I'll quickly go through there and touch on it as well to explain. So in the safety culture ladder, you hear there are different levels of maturity through the safety culture ladder. Why am I saying this? Because as a safety practitioner, you must be able to pick these things up and advise management and everybody in your organization how to change their safety culture, how to practice what they're supposed to practice. So in terms of a safety culture ladder, you must recognize, are you at the lowest rung of the ladder, at the bottom? And as you can see from the video clip, it says the bottom rung is actually what we call the pathological level. I mean, it gives me goosebumps because, I mean, you've heard people being called pathological liars. It means you lie at a whim. You lie as a way of getting out of a situation. Now, if you imagine being called, your safety culture is at the pathological level. And you heard in there, it says pathological level in terms of safety culture is when people in the mine, everybody, up to top management, they say to you, mining is a dangerous business, so we expect people to die and get injured. If you don't want to die or get injured, take the highway. That is pathological. Okay? That is the lowest rung. When you go up, the next step is your reactive safety culture. The next rung is reactive. What is reactive? In reactive, we expect people to get injured. That's what they tell you. It's a dangerous business, but we have got systems in place. We are running around, but we still find people who do not even understand their management system. I mean, typical examples in your mind, when everything is nice, the production is going honky-dory, everybody smiles and relax. The moment there is an accident that occurs, what happens? You see people jumping all over the place, trying to search for. In reactive safety culture, this is when we always see, when after something bad has happened, you see supervisors, managers running around with these papers to employees. Sign up, sign, because they are trying to put things in place that they are supposed to have in place in the first place. And you guys are being made to sign, even from change houses. You're signing PTOs. You don't know, are you doing a PTO in the change house? Because there was no PTO. That is reactive. And I can tell you, the vast majority of our minds in South Africa are floating between pathological and reactive. The next level is what we call calculative safety culture. And the calculative is when you have an organization where you find they've got the systems in place, perfectly written on paper. Procedures are beautiful. Everything is beautiful. They even try to attach bonus schemes, bonus systems to safety performance. I can name a few companies like that in the mining industry. But one thing you'll realize is, as much as they have got all those safety management systems, some written by people with doctorates, you name it, it looks beautiful on paper, but go and look at what is happening in the field. People are still getting injured and they are getting killed. That is calculative. The next level is what we call the proactive level. And the proactive, it's more like what is known as TQM, Total Quality Management, which uses the Kaizen culture, the Kaizen principles, originated in Japan. At that level in proactivity, it simply means employees are divided into smaller groups in their sections, what we call cells. And they are encouraged to embark on projects to improve their working environment. And by so doing, they come up with a presentation project of how they are going to improve their working places. And they do competitions between circles, and they present to top management, who then approve for the changes that are recommended by the employees themselves, and they get rewarded for that. So proactivity is actively going out to look for the wrong things. Yeah, it works. I've worked for an organization that uses that. Even actually, my first presentation in my whole life, professional presentation, was through the TQM. at one of the organizations that I started my career in. And we came second, and we won a prize for that. It was second. It was a cash prize. Now, at the highest of the safety culture ladder, we have what is called the generative organization. This is where everybody in the organization is aware of what is happening at all the times. No one is working with blinkers. No one is got no misinformation. If a manager says something, everybody to the lowest level, they get it. Try that in the current situation. A manager says something, by the time it's a week later, that's when you're going to hear, but the CEO said A, B, C, D. So all those things like communication channels, training, and so forth, they are all intertwined. They are all integrated in a very efficient system. The purpose is to learn. And if you look at the video clip, I've put also the video clip that describes the generative organization. If you look at these organizations, you'll find they mention examples of 16, 17-year-olds on a destroyer, a nuclear-powered ship. And they are the operations. They are trained, and trained again. The management plan again, and they relinquish operations to the youngsters. And they still excel in executing their duties without incidents or accidents. Why? Because they plan and they train. And plan and train. They drill it out until people are focused on and are aware of what they are supposed to do. And the next thing about generative organizations is that if something has to go wrong, if something goes wrong, we investigate it thoroughly. The findings that we get from the investigation, we create learning programs, and everybody is to be trained on that. What is called LFIs, learning from incidents. Now that's a higher level. I hope you enjoy those video clips. I hope you identify where in the organization is your safety culture, or where is your safety culture in your organization? Where do you stand in the safety culture ladder? Okay, thank you. We should go to the next slide. So, moving on again, sorry for the pause, I just paused it for a bit. We look at the statistics that we have had to endure in South Africa, in our mining industry. Ladies and gentlemen, all these numbers you see there represent our dead colleagues, our dead comrades in the mining industry. And you can see mine are starting from 1993. I mean, if you add up all this, yes, the graph is going down, appreciated, but one death is one too many. We don't want that. And in this pandemic period, we are getting still fatalities. I can tell you just recently, day before, just yesterday. Yesterday was the 26th of May. There was a fatality in Witbank. A mechanical assistant working on an ADT, and the ADT had open as he was doing repairs, and it fell down on top of him, crashed him to death. In the pandemic, where we are supposed even to operate at 50% in level 4 of the COVID regulations. Now we are going to level 3, more employees in. So it's a worrisome trend, but historically, according to the Chamber of Mines records, you'll find we started recording events in the industry somewhere around 1895. So from 1895 to 1991, the records show that we killed actually in South Africa 68,000 employees. And in that same period, we permanently disabled a total of just over 1 million people. Imagine, 1895 to 1991, 68,000 people dead, over 1 million permanently disabled. And if you take it from 1991 to now 2020, how many more? Okay. Yes, the trends are going down. I think this was in 2018, 2019. We ended up in around 51 fatalities. The first time we were almost less than 50, but that doesn't happen. But still, one death is one too many. So this is just something to show you all these numbers are our dead colleagues. These were fathers, these were sisters, these were brothers, these were mothers. And I always raise this issue for one reason, or one reason only. Who is responsible for safety? Is it the safety officer? Is it management? Is it the employees? Who? Because there are some companies with a culture, that mindset that says safety is for supervisors and management. They tell people at the bottom what to do. The moment we stop approaching things that way and make all safety requirements, train the employees in the language that they understand. Because these numbers, ladies and gentlemen, you are seeing here are actually numbers of dead people, and I can ask you how many of them are supervisors or managers. You won't answer me. Because we can go for years without a sheep was being killed, even a manager being killed in a mine. Can go for years. These are the guys on the face. Hence, your role as a safety practitioner is to raise awareness, change the safety culture of your organization. Talk to the people at the bottom. This attitude in our industry of saying the safety officer is for management and the safety rep is for everybody at the bottom. It should stop, actually. That is not how it's supposed to be. The safety officer is with their role as per the Mine Health and Safety Act. The safety rep with their role. We are all working to prevent accidents. We all work to focus on the people at the highest risk. The guy on the face for 10, 12 hours on the face. That is the guy who is at risk. That's what we need to sort out and focus on. Okay? Yes, everybody should play their part. A shift boss, a foreman, or whatever. They spend the whole shift underground on the face, depending on the type of mining method you are using. Okay. I remember when I was a foreman, I'll go underground 2-3 hours, visit the area that I wanted to visit. I'm out. I have to do some other stuff in the work, in the offices. So that automatically takes me out of the risky area, but I've left my employees at risk. So it is my responsibility to ensure that everybody on the call face under my watch is protected and they are well informed of what is the do's and the go, no go questions. That's what you must hammer in. That's what the safety culture is. If it cannot be done safely, then don't do it. It's as simple as that. Okay, so yes, I thought I would share with you there before we go to our objectives now. Starting with, when do we appoint a safety officer in the mining industry? There are 3 conditions, as you can see. When there are 300 or more employees in your mine, and also in a situation where it is directed or it is an instruction by the inspectorate, that's the second condition, and it must be done by the manager in writing. 3 conditions. This figure here, in the past year or two, we have heard they are going to amend somehow the Mine Health and Safety Act to make the figure less than this, but I won't talk about it now until the amendments are approved. But I've got a copy of the amendment. I'll share it with you and you can see what is coming in future. But with the pandemic right now, we don't know what changes are going to be effected. So those are the 3 conditions that we need to look out for. Which takes us to the next slide, which talks about the qualifications of a safety officer. What qualifications do you need a safety officer to have? Please bear in mind, when you see the slide headings are in a red font, I will still remind you for every present. This one is not in red, so it means it's not linked to an objective. Everything that is red is linked to an objective. Remember that. So what is a qualification? What are qualifications of? Let's start by describing what is a qualification. A qualification is a document that is proof of competency. It comes in the form of a certificate, a diploma, which is also a certificate, or a degree, which is also a certificate. But the difference between these 3 certificates is very simple. It is the complexity and the amount of time a learner has to go through to acquire that competency. A certificate, normally you find they explain it to be worth at least a minimum of 120 credits. That's what a certificate is worth. For a full qualification, ladies and these are full qualifications I'm talking about. 120 credits, they say 1 credit is equal to 10 notional hours. Notional hours meaning it's a notation to say, or it's a thinking of saying a learner for 1 credit spends 10 hours doing the assignment in class, assessments, and so forth. So that's 1 credit is 10 notional hours. It's a notion that is the amount of time you spend, so to speak. So if it is 120 credits for a certificate, it means how many hours? 1,200 hours minimum for that certificate. A diploma, you find it goes more, up to 270 or 250, 270, thereabout. A degree will be even almost 360 or even more. That's why you find some of these programs can take you 2 to 3 years, 3 years to 4 years. What is COMSOC? What is SAMTRAC? These are what we call skills programs. I mean, we do it in 2 weeks. Calculate the number of hours you spend. Yes, they can go right up there. But in terms of skills program, they are just skills program. They are not full qualifications. So we hear a lot of people say, I am qualified as a safety officer in the mining industry because I've got COMSOC. You have the minimum requirements as per the mining industry of having a COMSOC skills qualification. It's a skills qualification. It's not a full qualification. Because if I can tell you, you can check SAMTRAC and check COMSOC and check all these shorter programs that are skills programs where they fit even on the NQF, the majority don't fit in there. COMSOC is actually sanctioned by the Chamber of Mines, now Minerals Council, you saw it in the orientation video clip, as a skills program that is a requirement for all practicing safety officers in the industry. I've seen people with their diplomas, that's a national diploma in safety management from UNISA, from VUT, from everywhere. And still the mine requires them to do COMSOC as a skills program because there's a reason for that. With your diploma, academically acquired, can you hit the ground running? That is the big question. Okay, so those are what qualifications are dealt with. So it is recommended in terms of the Mine Health and Safety Act that as it currently stands, remember I said there are amendments that are being effected. Hopefully they will come soon enough. They say in the Mine Health and Safety Act 217.2 that the qualification of a safety officer is actually his or her training, knowledge, and experience. Okay. Training in what? Health and safety requirements. Knowledge in what? Knowledge of all the legislations. Experience, working in the workplace and performing the role of the practitioner. So also to be able to identify threats and potential threats with due regard to health and safety. So that's what it says in the Mine Health and Safety. It doesn't say you must have a diploma, you must have SAMTRAC, you must have COMSOC. This is what is mentioned, clear. But as I said, they are planning on changing it because there are new qualifications out there, full qualifications that they're going to be requiring all practicing safety officers to actually have, depending on what the pandemic throws at us again. But please get ready to embark on that journey again to meet the requirements, because failure to do that, they say we can't appoint you. They will have to put you in the program so that you get the appointment. Must be conversant, so this was number 1 in the qualification, must be conversant with applicable requirements relating to health and safety, must be familiar. I mean, it is so embarrassing to find a safety officer and you ask, what does Section 20 of the Mine Health and Safety Act deals with? Tololo, they don't know. Section 83, Tololo, they don't know. Section 88, Tololo. Section 95, Tololo. Section 6, there are some very important sections that you should know right from the top of your head. That's what we call familiar or conversant with applicable requirements. Not only in terms of the Mine Health and Safety Act, by the way, in terms of your company's processes and procedures with regards to health and safety, you must know. Another very important point is a safety practitioner in the mines should be able to devote all their time to health and safety related matters. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, I was a photographer during safety campaigns. I would drive a buggy full of the tent and pipes for the tent and chairs. You run around all for the role of safety. We devote our time. Whether it is 2 o'clock in the morning and you are called out that there is a problem with your mind, you go. I think it was some of us the first to get even a speed dial on our cell phones in the early days. Whether I'm in N12, I'm going to Johannesburg, coming from Western area where the mine I was working is situated, and it says problem. You make a U-turn, Baba, and you go back, because we are what we are. That's what we do. It's all about safety, in and out. Okay? And this is also very important in terms of what motivates you to be in this career. I know some of the guys are getting into this career because they see people working with logbooks, not pets, and they say, the guy is just walking around writing things and this. It's as easy. It's not a walk in the park in this. Tell me, coming face to face with family members of the deceased, the person died in your section of responsibility. You tell me that is easy. It's not. Dealing with the inspectorate when things of non-compliance are being discussed, when timbers are flaring, you have to grow a thick skin. It's not easy. It's not a walk in the park. It's not about the money. It is about being motivated from inside to prevent. I'm telling you, in my time as a safety practitioner and also working in the gold mine, in that period of 8 years underground, how many dead bodies did I actually witness and get involved in retrieving? It's traumatic. It's a very traumatic experience. So I can tell you, 2007, I was still a safety officer underground, and I can tell you that one financial year we had, you saw it on the statistics, 219 fatalities, the whole mining industry in South Africa. Some statistics are claiming 220. But now in the records they revised, I think one of the guys died due to natural causes. They are having it on the record officially as 219. And that was a spike as compared to the previous year. And who was the president then? Comrade Thabo Mbeki. And unions, the government started saying what is wrong in the mining industry. Why can't things work out? Why can't mines that are not compliant or people that are being exposed to such risks and hazards, what is happening? And that was when the first ever declaration on what we call presidential audits were being enforced, left, right, and center. You find a bunch of inspectors come to your mine and they do audits top to down. Especially that was very heavy from 2007. And if you look from 2007, that year, because that was when the inspectorate started showing their teeth, using the powers they have in the Mine Health and Safety Act. If you look from that period till now, how many Section 54s have been issued in the mining industry? If you compare from 2007 going backwards, compare from there coming now. That's when the power of the Section 54 and Section 55. Well, okay. I don't know what happened between government and the inspectorate and the department, but I'm telling you, that's when they started showing the teeth and the powers that they have. Now, what else? Training. What kind of training does a safety practitioner actually have in terms of skills? Okay. We need a safety practitioner that can have the following. For example, risk evaluation techniques. What are risk evaluation techniques? HIRA, fault tree analysis, bow ties, fishbone analysis, ARACET, ICAM, 5Y analysis. All those risk evaluation techniques you need training on, but please look at what your specific organization is utilizing. Get training for that. We have seen a lot of safety officers who cannot even investigate an incident, let alone an accident. You look at the process they follow. Each organization is required to have if it is an investigation technique, they choose a particular, if it is ARACET or ICAP, they choose that. But then they must have a procedure of how that investigation is to be conducted. But some safety practitioners, they don't even know where to start. They identify the direct causes as the main causes of the accident. I hope in this program, when we get to the topic of accident incident investigations, you are going to learn also a thing or two about how to conduct proper investigations. Standards and procedures. You need to know your standards and procedures. We're going to deal with standards and procedures, how they are utilized in the second week. First aid. Yes, every employee in most mines is a first aider, is trained as a first aid. But I also raise an interesting question here in most cases with our employees. Yes, you are trained as a first aider in your mine, but at home you are having maids that are taking care of your kids and your elders. Maybe you're staying with your grandpa or your great grandma or whatever. But tell me, did you have that maid trained in first aid? It's always a question. That's a very good investment. Make sure your maids have got first aid, because if you are not at home and things go haywire, they can save lives of your relatives, of your family. It's like having a maid or people working for you in your house and you've got a swimming pool and they don't know even how to swim. What if your kid falls into the water? Who's going to rescue them if you're not around? Okay, think about those. Yes, you can say it's locked, it's fenced, it's kids are going to be kids all the time. Okay, you think about the worst case scenario when you think about control methods of preventing harm to your loved ones. Firefighting, yes. Emergency procedures, you need that training. Broad knowledge of the operation, what we call process appreciation. You can't work in a gold mine and you don't know how is the gold mined, how does it get transported to the plant, how does it get processed in the plant. If you work for years and years in the gold mine, you have to know, because you're not going to be in that department permanently forever until you retire. You are going to be moved out, rest assured. You are going to be moved around. So better, if you are in the organization already, start to learn what is happening in the different operations. Disciplinary codes and procedures. A safety officer is a supervisor, right? Are you allowed to charge people? Most definitely, you're allowed. But is it going to work to your advantage? Nope, it won't. You are people's people. Charging people, yes, as a last resort, you can do that. But are people going to really work with you? Because you'll find it very interesting. The supervisor responsible for that person you have charged is going to come and confront you that you are not his or her supervisor. You don't have the right to charge them. So it's always good to have working relationship with supervisors, so that if you have issues, then let them charge their own employees with you supplying the evidence why they should be charged. Okay. So yes, you are a supervisor. You can charge. I'm not saying you cannot. You're a supervisor. That is supervisory level. But in most cases, it works against us. Okay? We just start getting called names and so forth. But I know some of us, we overdo it, because they will tell you, some of us, we do it so that people are scared. I mean, if you see you are a safety officer who, when you make a turn, and as you make a turn, people are running around everywhere, running away, then you know there's something wrong with you. People should be coming to you. But we've got some of those who, even from afar, you can see that's a safety officer coming, or makuloscope, like they call them in the gold mines. You see, they walk with their hands from afar, you can see, and you start wondering, oh, what's happening? Even the thinnest of the safety officers is walking like they've got muscles. They want to be saying that, hey, makuloscope and Nabuya. Anyway, let's move forward. Now, when you look at the duties of a safety officer, I want to start with this objective number 6. Then we can go back to objective number 3. Objective number 6 talks about at what intervals must areas be inspected by a safety officer. and who establishes those intervals. And I said it's 8 marks, 2 marks each. So where are those 8 marks coming from? So that's your point number 1, point number 2, point number 3, point number 4. So the person who establishes the schedule for inspections or frequency of inspections is the Chief Safety Officer, because it's a requirement, it's part of their duties according to the Mine Health and Safety Act. So there are critical areas that must be inspected every 30 days, even less than 30 days. Take, for example, shaft examination. We do it not more than a period surpassing 10 days, once a week. That's what they say. But it is within 30 days. So those are critical areas. They must do their risk profiling at that level. Non-critical areas, 45-day areas. Other areas, 90 days, determined by the chiefs. That is what you do. That is all you need for answering this objective. But coming to objective number 3, we are killing 2 birds with one stone. Objective number 3 says list duties, at least 6 duties of a safety officer. And I've already ticked number 1 here. Safety officers conduct inspections. Safety officers do the following as well. Ensure that reasonable precautions. This is verbatim from the Mine Health and Safety Act. Maintain and check the use of PPE. In other words, ensure that employees are sticking to the company's PPE instructions. Assist in revising standards, rules, and procedures. Yes, you do that. Ensure employees are trained and qualified. We're not saying go to the training department and go get training records of the employees. We are saying, take for example operators in your mine. If you've got operators in your mine, you can stop an operator and say, "Whoa, Baba, hima bichana. Can I see your operator's permit or license? Permit to operate. It must be valid. It must be for the same type of equipment." That's what we're talking about. Okay. You see people doing ABCD and you think, that needs to have a permit. You can ask that. That's what we're talking about here. Okay. Report threats to the responsible person. Very important here. Who is this responsible person? You must know. The responsible person is the responsible supervisor for that section. That's where your reports go. If you do an inspection, yes, your chief safety officer must countersign on it that everything is okay, but the person who fixes is the one who you report to, you give the report to them. Any potential threats, that's what you make them aware, because they're the one who are going to fix. It's not your chief safety officer is going to fix. So the responsible person is mostly the supervisor responsible for that area. More duties, just quickly going through them. Take reasonable steps to avoid threat where possible. Enter findings in books. In other words, all our reports are written in ink, signed off. Facilitate accident incident events. I changed this deliberately. In the law book it says conduct, but you see, does the safety officer have to conduct every investigation? I know the chief safety officer, because it's my area of responsibility, says, "Kelvin, make sure the investigation is conducted." But I facilitate as a practitioner, ensuring that quality is adhered to by the people who are investigating, with the lead investigator being the responsible supervisor where the accident happened, depending on the severity of the accident. So I am there to facilitate the process. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, it's so flabbergasting to see when an accident happens, depending how severe it is, obviously, but ordinary, normal accident that happen, you find the safety officer is in the forefront all the time, assisting the supervisors. When are they going to learn to investigate? It is recommended they investigate, they understand the skill. When are they going to learn? Because I can tell you, you are doing all that. When things are honky-dory and nice, and you are coming to those areas, you are being called names. You are being fought left, right, and center. But when there is an accident, who is the first person they call? It's you. Hence, I say facilitate. I started by conducting myself, I know. But over the time, I got to learn from the experienced guys that, listen, Kelvin, the responsible supervisor where the accident happened in that section should investigate. You are there to facilitate the process, to ensure the investigation process is to the T, according to the company's procedure, to maintain quality of the investigation. So you are there as an overseer and if people are starting to beat about the bush with the evidence and starting to commit perjury with the evidence, you are there to watch that out. Unlike what we see, the safety officer is there, the supervisor is there, and they are busy committing perjury by changing the evidence, changing the stories, and so that people can be apparently exonerated. It comes back to the technique that you are using in your mind, or what your mining culture is all about after an accident. Because I can tell you, some mines will charge you after an accident. So some people then tend to start to plant evidence so that they can get exonerated and so forth. That is also a thing about safety culture. Hold regular meetings with safety reps, yes, or at least quarterly. Make recommendations to management with regards to, that's what it means here, with regards to safety and health in the organization. In other words, you are allowed to put recommendations to top management, but make sure you go there, you've done this year, and you keep a record that I have reported to you, sign a lapa minier, go to the next one. If you don't get any joy, you can go to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. Because if you just jump to the top to put recommendations or report, believe me, they're going to send you down. Now, what are the accidents that must be reported? Let's be clear here in explaining what are casualty accidents and what are non-casualty accidents. Casualty accidents are accidents whereby you have personal injuries that occur. People get injured in that accident. That's personal injuries. Casualty. Non-casualty are those ones where you have property damage, no one is injured, and so forth. So they all are categorized as they must be reported to the DMRE according to regulations. So which ones are there? For casualty, obviously, all fatalities are reported. Serious injury likely to be a fatality, heat stroke, electric shock, and you'll find this also is highlighted in the Mine Health and Safety Act. Gassing, drowning, off work for more than 14 days, loss of a limb, amputations, multiple casualty accidents are also reported. For example, we used to have the hostel system, and if people eat bad food, contaminated food, you find 100 people are sick from that kitchen. Salmonella pallidum, E. coli, all those bacteria that are associated with bad food. So that is reportable because it's a multiple casualty. Then we look at our non-casualties. They include, amongst others, accidents to shafts, fires, flooding, all these, including also any serious event where there were no injuries. Or, like here, we should put all machinery related are now reportable as well. I hope this covers the bulk of our objectives for this topic. If there are any questions, remember we are going to be meeting to discuss issues where clarity is required, and it will be provided on our online platforms. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Stay well, stay safe. See you in the online platform.